I love the 90s quite a lot, right? I love 90s indie rock. I love Pavement so much. They're like one of my favorite bands. And basically, in the last few months, I accidentally ended up writing this album full of early 90s inspired indie rock songs, right? And last month, I decided that I wanted to record this whole album in a single day. Spoiler alert, it failed, right? It didn't go to plan. In this video you're watching, I'm going to try my very best to kind of outline the journey of how I made this album from writing the first song all the way to having the project finished. Let's go.
I got all dressed up for you. I got all messed up. I got all dressed up for you. I got all messed up.
So this whole album basically stemmed from one song I wrote called All Dressed Up. I wrote it like at the end of September, and the story behind it goes like this, right? I'm not afraid to say this. It's embarrassing, but I don't care. Basically, I was going to college, and it was like the start of, new college year, and there was this girl that I kept on seeing, right? Before college, walking up, and I never really got a chance to speak to her, and I never saw her any other time of the day. It was always just before college. And I really wanted to go up and speak to her, but I was nervous, right? Every day I'd kind of like time things to make sure I kind of like knew her kind of schedule. And one day I got all dressed up, right? Not all dressed up, I just put on some nice clothes, like the best kind of outfit I could possibly make with the clothes that I had. And she wasn't there. Oh no, I must have missed her or something, or maybe she was there early. And I just basically, in a huff, I went up to the library and I sat down and I wrote that song. I wrote about 7 or 8 verses for it, and I chopped it down to like 4 later, and that is it. That's the song. It's just basically about that, and it's very embarrassing and very stupid, but it's quite funny. The song itself is pretty simple, right? It kind of just repeats these 2 chords over and over again for most of the song, and it gives it this kind of like repetitive, quite hypnotic kind of quality.
I got all dressed up for you, but you know we're like always. I can't really hear myself.
From then on, I kind of continue to write more songs similar to that, both in musical style and also lyrical content. It also says that I'm obsessed with longing and almost relationships. The thing that kind of holds all these songs together is that they're guitar songs, You can play them from start to finish on a guitar, just on its own. This is just because these songs are very casual, I didn't really put a lot of thought into them. Their main purpose was just to kind of express some sort of emotion in the easiest possible way, and for me, that just happens to be like that. So I kept on writing more and more songs until December 6th, right, when I came back from a party and I lay in a sleeping bag, half drunk, in my living room, and I wrote 2 songs that night that became the final 2 songs of the album that I was writing. After that, I spent some time arranging the songs into a track list that flowed quite nicely, and I was pleasantly surprised when I found a kind of natural story arc within the chaos of my ramblings. So now I had all of these songs written, and it was time to do the thing that I love the most about making music, which is recording it. I don't know why I'm in my car, it's just a change of scenery. As I mentioned before, this album was very much inspired by early 90s indie rock music, especially like some of Pavement's earlier stuff. I wanted to inject this album with a really kind of raw sound, as if it was like by a band in the early 90s making their first album on a budget kind of deal, right? The way I planned to do this was pretty simple. First of all, record on tape, right? Because back then, that's what they would have recorded on. As you may know, I've recorded a couple of albums on tape before, and I've got this really cool 8-track cassette recorder that I use quite often, so this wasn't ever going to be a problem for me. The second way I was going to get a really raw sound for this album was to record it all in one day, right? And this was the challenging thing. So I hired out a rehearsal studio practice room thing for a day with the hopes of recording the whole album in that day. All the songs really needed was a guitar, a bass, and some drums, and I felt like, if I just kept focused, I could record all that in a day. Third way I was gonna make this album sound raw is to record it live with multiple musicians, right? This wasn't part of the original plan, but I was telling my friend Alfie about the whole project, and he basically offered to play bass on the album, right? To kind of like take a load off my back. So the session was gonna go like this, right? First of all, I'll record the drums for all the songs, just like one after another on tape. And then we set up our guitars, or I'm on guitar, him on bass, and a microphone for me singing, and we basically perform it live with the drums playing and record that, and then that would be the song, that would be the album. Recording it all like this meant we could kind of capture the energy of the performance along with any kind of mistakes that might be in there, which, you know, naturally will be in there, which gives the album a very real and raw personality, which is exactly what I was going for. Long story short, it didn't work. Things just kept on going wrong. We kept on losing things. I recorded some songs over some previous recordings, which on tape means those previous ones just get lost. Some cables didn't work. Alfie wasn't fully confident with the bass line for some of the songs. We had to drive half an hour all the way back to my house just to get one of these. Ridiculous. In the end, we only managed to record the first half of the album, and we just called it quits after that. Everything that was easy in theory suddenly became a lot more difficult once you had the pressure of a ticking clock, being in a room that you've booked out, which I'm not used to, as you know, I usually make all my music in my own room, in my own time. But yeah, here's like a rough mix of some of the recordings we made.
When it comes to Ruby, I wanna love her so bad. I wanna love her so bad.
It's fine, but it's a bit too raw. It sounds a little bit too much like you opened the door and you walked into like a random band rehearsal, as opposed to sounding like a budget studio recording, which was the intended sound. So, how did I save this album? After lying awake that night, tossing and turning in disappointment, I decided to hire a drum kit in a different practice room studio place and basically start again from scratch with a new perspective. This time I'd do it in my usual way, one instrument at a time, in my own time. So yeah, I recorded the drums for the whole album in one go at this studio place. It took me like a couple hours to get everything done, and I was very pleased with the results. If you're a nerd and you're wondering how I mic'd up the drum kit, basically I had one kick mic for the kick drum, and I had one overhead pointing at the snare, and then I had a ribbon mic in the corner of the room, quite low down near the ground, in the corner behind a guitar amp, and that's it. It's pretty simple, but it's got a really cool sound. The next day I recorded all the guitar and bass tracks for the album, and the day after that I did all the vocals, along with some like extra percussion bits and whatever. So now I was recording on my own free time, right? I didn't have to worry about a booking kind of running out or anything, and I felt a huge difference in the recording. Like I was having a lot more fun. And hopefully you'll be able to actually hear the difference between the two recording sessions as well.
I'm so short with you. You never know what you got, 'cause you're too strong. And you can shoot me too. I live my life in a line to run. I'm so. She's been falling from the start. She's been falling from the start. I just make one.
Real quick, for the nerds, I'll just go through the kind of gear I used. So for guitars, I used my Squier Strat, going into the Bayang FZ7 fuzz pedal, which is absolutely insanely nice. That going into my amp, which is a Boss Katana 50. But yeah, that's the only guitar on the album, it's just that. For the bass, I used my Harley Benson bass. It's nothing special, just going directly into TL Audio Fat 2. Which is like a little preamp compressor thing, and then going directly into tape, so no amp involved. For vocals, I used this incredibly cool microphone that I bought off eBay for, I think, £25, definitely under £30. It was made in West Germany, so that kind of tells you about how old it is. I think it's 70s, but it might be 60s, who knows. It's old and it sounds cool, that's all you need to know really. So this went straight into the Fat Man to, you know, fatten it up a little bit, and then it went directly to cassette to record. By Christmas Eve, everything had been recorded onto my 8-track cassette recorder, which the camera is standing on, and the only job left now was to mix it all down. Mixing, if you're unsure, is basically the act of putting together all the different instruments that make up a song and making them all sound nice together. It's basically the music equivalent of video editing, right? So I listened back to all the songs all the way through, and I made my notes, like, you know, drums could go up here in this section, maybe bring the bass down in this section here, and I began mixing the album. By the end of the day, I had finished mixing the album, just in time for Christmas. I'll be honest, the mixes are not the best, right? Most of the time you'd spend maybe 1, 2, even 3 or 4 weeks mixing an album but I did the best I could do in a single day. I didn't have to do it in a single day, but I did it like that because I wanted it to be imperfect. There are some moments where a vocal might drop a little bit in level and it's a little bit too quiet, or a guitar might be a little bit too loud in a song. But believe it or not, that's actually okay, and that's what I wanted. If this was, say, a real album recorded by a band in the early 90s, I like to imagine that they wouldn't have the money to kind of go to a top tier mixing engineer and say, hey, mix our album, you know? They'll probably go to the cheap guy who might cut some corners and might say, yeah, it'll be done by lunchtime, you know? It's the imperfections that make this album really real and give it a lot of personality, a unique kind of personality, in my opinion. And I'll tell you what, right? I'll leave you with this. AI could easily simulate all of these imperfections and all of these mistakes, right? So why would I choose to still do it myself anyway? Well, these are my mistakes, right? That I made on my album, and I'm very, very proud to own every single one. So, what have I learnt from this fast-moving experience? I don't really know. Not much, really. Don't try and record an album in a day unless you've been rehearsing it for months, maybe, something like that. Don't be afraid to start again if things just aren't working for you. I don't think it makes you weak at all, right? It's not really a big deal, and I think it just adds to the story. Thanks for watching my video. It's really cold, but so subscribe to make me warmer.